and some other measures of development. Since we mentioned early on that development is a multidimensional concept, therefore you should use multidimensional measure to measure development, demographics, education, nutrition, urbanization, use of commercial energy, and many other measures. Here we can see a measure of consumer goods. The internet users per thousand people of different world regions, and that could be a good measure of development. And it's okay. And this motor vehicles ownership per thousand number of motor vehicles per thousand people also get a sense of different kind of a different pattern of between developed countries and developing countries. Then we look at number of cell phones per thousand people. We see similar pictures, and more developed countries seem to have more people who own cell phone than countries that are not developed. And education, the average years of schooling, you can see that in South Asia, Southeast Asia, part of sub-Saharan Africa, you see that they have relatively lower average years of schooling. The number of students per teacher ratio, again, African countries and South Asian countries show very high level disadvantage compared with other countries and other regions. Literacy rate is very clear. Again, South Asia and sub-Saharan Africa relatively low compared with other world regions. And now, so far, we'll be discussing the measure one at a time. So each measure that we have seen so far just measure income or education or particular consumer goods. Okay. Now, some people believe that when you measure one thing at a time, you really cannot see the whole picture. That's why some people call for the development of composite measures. And the United Nations have developed a Human Development Index, or HDI, and this is a composite measure. This composite measure combines several important dimensions. One is per capita income, second is life expectancy, and third is education. Per capita income illustrates people's economic well-being. Life expectancy really illustrates countries' health care industries quality. Education gives people a sense of how well a country develop human as a resource. So this is three important aspects of development are combined within one single index, and that's why it's called composite index. How the index work? They run between 0 to 1. The larger the index value, the more developed a country is. So on this map, we can really get a sense of what countries tend to have a higher human development index by looking at the shades of colors of different countries and regions. And this is a slide that compare different world regions and some major countries, their human development index. So as we can see that this composite measure give us a kind of consistent information about the measures that we have seen so far. Also, we can see from this slide that over time, the developing regions and developed regions, their human development index, the level of human development index seem to be get closer. So the gaps tend to be closing. For example, you can really see that this is one composite life expectancy between developed countries and developing countries. So you can really see they are catching up. They're catching up. This is a whole HDI change over time between developed and developing regions. Again, you can see it seems to be narrowing. So there are some developing countries seem to be catching up to developed countries when it comes to measure the gap between them by using Human Development Index. Of course, the gap still remains. There's still a way to go between two parts of the world really converge. Another important issue in discussion of development is gender equality. And this is always regarded as one important dimension of development, how we can reduce gender inequality. And that's why the United Nations developed a Gender Inequality Index, GII. And how this index works, again, it runs from 0 to 1. The larger the value, the more unequal between different genders. Okay? And again, this is a composite measures that include reproductive health, empowerment, and labor participation measures. Reproductive health is basically how much health care women receive so that they become healthy, also their baby become healthy. Empowerment refer to how much, to what extent female also have the opportunity to become the leaders of the country, to become leaders of business as well. Labor participation is very clear, just to what extent women have opportunity to get employment in economic sectors. So this map shows that the gender inequality index, the number, we know that the larger the number, the more equal between genders. So on this map, lighter colored regions are those regions that have a higher level of gender inequality. As we mentioned before, South Asia and Sub-Saharan African countries tend to have a higher level of gender inequality. So this is a part of a gender inequality measure that shows the reproductive health. So this particular map shows the number of deaths of women per 100,000 live births. So those dark shaded regions shows they have higher deaths of women per 100,000 live births. So poor condition of reproductive health. This map shows adolescents' fertility rate per 1,000 people. So that per 1,000 females. Again, that gives us a sense of for teenagers, if you lack of information, lack of opportunities, you tend to give birth to more children, and that again shows countries of South Asia, Sub-Saharan African countries, also some Latin American countries seem to have a more adolescents fertility rate. So that is a reflection of a poor condition of reproductive health, especially the educational and economic opportunities for female. So this is a map that shows percentage of seats in legislature held by women, kind of a empowerment measure. And this is a map that shows the ratio of female to male rate of secondary education. If the for those countries that have darker shades indicate female and male have a more equal opportunity in receiving secondary education. And this map shows ratio of female to male labor force participation. Again, the darker the shadings, more equal between male and female in terms of opportunity to get employed on the job market. So the point of these slides is basically there are many other measures of development. So development, as we mentioned before, is a multi-dimensional concept. So we can use many different ways to measure development. So this slide shows a table that shows youth labor force participation rate by regions and sex. Let's just look at the particular regions such as Middle East and North Africa, and to a certain extent, South Asia. This is the total. First column shows the total. Second column shows male, and last column shows female. We can really see that for Middle East, North Africa, and South Asia, females' percentage of labor force participation is only in the 20s, only 20s percent, 21%, 22%, and 27%, much lower than the world average. So that really gave us a sense of the world average for female labor force participation is 42%. And these three regions comes at the bottom. So that gives us a sense of regional variations for the economic opportunities for females, much lower than other world regions. This is a gender inequality index improvement between the late 1990s to 2010. We do see some regions that have gone through important improvement, but still you see some regions, especially some countries in sub-Saharan Africa, we see very little improvement over time. Here we have another current issue. Can empowering women and improving women's condition promote development, and why not? So you guys can prepare to discuss this question on the test, on the next test.